Okay, I'd like to call to order the meeting of Mayor and Council. I want to welcome everybody here tonight. Before we get started, though, we do want to recognize that we lost one of our members, one of our great community members, past mayor, past city council member, past vice mayor for many years, 22 years on city council, 3 terms as mayor, and just an avid player in our community, certainly in our faith community, a strong Christian man that I'm sure each one of you has received an email of encouragement from Mayor Butler at one point in time in your life. Truly a great loss. So tonight we're going to start with just a moment of silence and prayers for the Butler family as they work through this. So if you'll rise, and then we'll have the invocation.
Okay, let us pray. Father God, we stand before you on this night that you have made. We pray and ask for your blessings upon this meeting that's held here and the people here that showed up. We pray and ask for your wisdom, knowledge, and good common sense to help us make wise decisions. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Please remain standing for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Okay, do we have any changes to tonight's agenda?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, as a reminder to council, we do have an executive session following our council meeting tonight. You've all received the minutes from our June 13th meeting. If there are no questions or comments, I'll accept the motion to receive those minutes.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I'll second that motion.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, do we have anyone here tonight for public comment?
We do not.
Okay, all right, thanks so much. Do we have any correspondence?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay, under new business number 1, I'm going to invite up Director Mears and Mr. Derbyshire to walk through the PFAS regulations and all that high-level stuff.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So PFAS, a term you may or may not be familiar with, is an acronym for per and polyfluoroalkyl substances. There's a term also known as emerging contaminants, and it falls under that group of chemicals. These PFAS chemicals are synthetic chemicals that have been manufactured and used widely in the industry for nearly 60 plus years, 70 years. They're nothing new. Some of the trade names that you're familiar with are Teflon, Scotchgard, as well as light water, which is a fire fighting foam. They were used because of their specific properties as far as temperature resistance, resistance degradation, and then non-stick characteristics. They're not something that's unique to just Delaware or the United States. I mean, they're worldwide, obviously more prevalent in the developed countries. And the exposure of these contaminants to individuals is very probable. Each of us has probably been exposed to these chemicals at some point in our time. The reason they're coming to light now is because technology advancements allow the measurements of extremely low concentrations that these chemicals are found in. So now we're actually able to detect them and monitor them. As far as the EPA regulatory picture, and these have been around and something that's been known about for a while. There is currently no maximum contaminant level, so there's no requirement to treat, to remove these constituents down to a certain concentration, specifically in water systems, potable water systems. EPA does have a health advisory limit, which are, it's a non-regulatory parameter, and typically they're set much lower than what would be a maximum contaminant level if one did exist. So they're noted there for your reference. However, that said, EPA is now proposing draft regulations which are noted there. These are relatively low concentrations. However, they're significantly higher than what the health advisory limits are. However, they're set there because those are concentrations that EPA feels are measurable and enforceable. The comment period ended on May 30th for those draft regulations. With regard to Delaware, the regulatory picture, the existing regulations, the situation is identical to what EPA has right now. There's no MCL, and the health advisory limit is the same as well. However, back was February of 2022. DENREC proposed draft regulations, which you can see there. They're significantly, I shouldn't say significantly, but they're higher than what EPA is proposing. So in essence, I think the department saw what EPA was doing, so they more or less put their regulations on hold, waiting to see what EPA was going to do. Because obviously, DENREC is not going to, stipulate maximum contaminant levels that are higher than what EPA is going to require. They're going to need to be at the same level, if not lower. So they're currently on hold. So that's basically where we are in a regulatory standpoint. And with regard to the actions to date, city's taken a proactive approach and has been testing its water sources to understand what the concentrations are in those water sources. And what we found thus far is that they're low. I think some of them may be at a point where, depending on where some of these regulations end up, may be at a point where treatment may be required. But the testing it's very complicated and it's subject to cross-contamination. I think Mr. Mears can speak to some of that. So, I mean, thus far there hasn't been extensive testing. We're just kind of getting an understanding of the situation, trying to figure out where the city's falls into this. Back at the beginning of this month, Mr. Mears attended a seminar that the Department of Health and Social Services put on with regard to funding opportunities. Specifically, Delaware has this Delaware Emerging Contaminant Small or Disadvantaged Community Grant Program. So there's federal money as far as the bipartisan infrastructure law money that's going to be available in the form of grant funding to help communities to basically look at this situation, understand what the concentrations are, look at what their opportunities are for the communities as far as to provide treatment or to look at other water sources for the potable system. Cities is working actively, obviously, with George Mosley Bureau and myself, and we're in the process of putting together a notice of intent that's due in July for this funding. And we'll just, commend Burley and the city staff. They're at the forefront of these regulations, taking the steps to be prepared for the future. So once again, this is not something that's specific to just Seaford, but it's going to impact all the public water systems in the state of Delaware, as well as potentially residential systems, folks that are on their own residential wells.
Mr. Derbyshire, do you sense that, we've talked about this for a while, that the state is going to eventually be encouraging those on their own standalone systems to be moving towards some sort of central sewer water system? Is that the move of the state?
I think so, where it's economically feasible, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, at some
have
point, an individual is not
community
going to be able to manage this.
To afford, correct.
Right.
And I mean, obviously, these requirements wouldn't apply to, like, somebody that was had a residence out in the county and wasn't part of a municipal system. But then again, somebody who was concerned for their own health, safety, well-being may want to implement some type of system if they were to test and find that they did have levels of these contaminants in their water supply that were above, what the EPA set for an MCL.
Okay. All right, are there any questions from City Council? Go ahead,
Thank you,
Councilman
Mr.
Kim.
Mayor. So my question is around the accountability part. You're talking about testing. So is that governed by the state? Are you kind of doing a test yourself and then you're reporting numbers? Or are they coming in to verify what you're reporting is accurate? Can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Yeah, if you would.
Yeah, sure. So, just to give you a little more background too about the testing. Back when this all first happened with Blades, you might have remembered. I don't remember what year that was. It's been probably 3 years ago now or so. But they wanted us to test. The state wanted us to test our wells as well. Well, back then, like Chris alluded to, the limits of technology to test down to certain levels didn't exist. So when we tested our wells, they came back non-detectable, meaning they couldn't detect anything to the limits of technology of the way they analyzed for it. So then the state came along with these 14 and 17, I think it was, is what they were shooting for, or what they were proposing. And then we did another round of testing, and we're like from 5 to 6 parts per trillion. Most things that we we do analysis for in wastewater and water, you typically is parts per million. This is parts per trillion, so it's way down there. They're really trying to find trace amounts of it. So then now, EPA, what the EPA is proposing is a limit of 4. So and that just happened about 2 months ago. So the EPA came out with this, saying that that's where they're going to head for. So now, all of a sudden, we're at 5 to 6. Before we were good, now we're right over the limit. But to answer your question, there's only a few labs that do this actual test. Right now, there's a PFAS Solutions up in northern Delaware. They'll do them locally. So I have contracted with them to do another round of sampling. It's an expensive test. It's $250 per test. So I'm going to do that. The state, when I was talking to them, said they're actually collecting them, and they don't have anybody around here that's doing them. PFAS Solutions is a small facility, small company, so I don't think they can do the volume of the whole state. So the state is actually having to take them and send them out to San Francisco, California, to get them done, because there's no one really locally that does it. So it's all kind of, it's coming. I don't think they really know what they're going to do yet and how they're going to handle all this, because it's really going to affect all communities with public drinking water systems.
Yeah, especially when it's that granular, right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
you're talking, that's a minute, but that number goes from nothing to now significant.
Yeah, see, it's considered a forever chemical. It doesn't go away. There's nothing you can treat it with that makes it go away. You got to capture it and then incinerate it.
But it seems like the state would kind of work through that before they rolled this program out. It's kind of like, in my opinion, kind of put the cart before the horse, but, I mean, we'll have to adjust and do what we can. But
Yeah, at least they're having this funding.
Yeah.
They have $9 million for this particular year, and then they're going to have $4.5 million, I think, for the next 4 years to give grants for, but that's going to
Okay.
go fast.
All right, good, thank you. I appreciate it, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? Yes, sir.
You've said at the end there, you can't treat it, you gotta capture it. What does that mean, how you capture it?
It means you don't actually destroy it, you're just going to capture it. So technology methods are reverse osmosis.
Mhm.
So once again, you're going to end up with a concentrate, solution then that you got to deal
Hazardous
with.
waste.
Yeah, hazardous waste, or you use granular activated carbon.
Mhm.
So once again, you're absorbing it onto the carbon, then you got to either, get it off the carbon, regenerate the carbon once again, or just change out the carbon, and you got to once again deal with the carbon that's got this compound on it. Or you can use ion exchange system, which is what, any kind of ion exchange system, specifically designed with the resin to target this contaminant. And once again, you're going to end up with a brine concentration that's got a higher level of these contaminants that you got to then deal with.
Appreciate it.
So maybe treat is the wrong word. We can treat it to a level to remove it, but how we treat it is not, like you said, you don't destroy it. It's always there.
And four.
Okay. Any other questions? I'm sure Mr. Derbyshire and Mr. Mears will be back to keep us posted on this process. Thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Appreciate you
Thank
being
you.
here. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank
All right, next,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mears is going to walk us through the cross-connection control plan.
Yep. So a couple months ago now, I think it was, I presented to you, Mayor and Council, the cross-connection control plan. So comments that came back, I was charged with making some modifications to it, one being some sort of opt-out or exemption policy for low hazards, that maybe you only have one bathroom in a commercial. Originally, I was trying to do all commercials, and then the thought was, for, say, a commercial that's an accountant's office with one bathroom, maybe they can opt out if they want to opt out through a request to the city. So I put that language in the draft plan for all your review. And then one thing I also did was I actually listed what what type facilities would require the higher level of protection, which is the RPZ type backflow preventer. So those were the two main changes or additions to the plan.
Okay, are there any questions from council in regards to the changes made to the cross-connection control plan? Councilman Henderson.
I have a comment.
Uh-huh.
I just
want to thank you, Burley, for having an open mind and addressing the concerns that myself and other constituents had about this. And you've done a job that I think I can support this. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. Any other questions for Director Mears? If not, I'll accept the motion.
All right, Mr. Mayor, Councilman King, I'll make a motion to approve the cross-connection control plan for the Seaford domestic water system as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman King?
Aye.
Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Director Mears, I have a question real quick for you. I'm just trying to wave you secretly up here. How are we going to communicate this to the public? How will this roll forward? And will we be in control of that communication?
So everybody has already received letters from our third party, trying to get this done for the last year or so.
Right.
So what we can do now is just, I will communicate with them, our third party, to let them know that there is an exemption option. So then when they communicate with the actual customer, then they can explain to them the process to get to ask for an exemption from me. So, and there's also, I've already communicated with a few.
Okay.
And the third party has as well, so I have a running list of the ones that I'm fine with exempting. So I'll reach out to them. And let them know.
Okay, and if anybody has any questions, they can just reach out to you directly.
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it, sir. Oh, okay, next we have the approval to appoint the records officer.
Yes, sir. So what you have in your packages is the appointment of records officer and authorized agents for 2024 to the Delaware Public Archives. Council will likely recall we do this annually, and we report the names of those people. So the list is relatively short. Our city clerk, municipal clerk, Ashley Heineke is one of them. Tricia Newcomer, myself, and June Merritt are the records officer and authorized agents. No change from prior years on any of the names, but if council approves this, we'll get this back and fulfill our requirement to the archives.
Okay, are there any questions in regards to the appointments of records officers? If not, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to appoint the records officer and authorized agents for 2024 to Delaware Public Archives as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, next we have the engineering and planning from the Rosie Group to present the Safe Streets and Roads. And we're going to call up Ms. Coons and Ms. Oslander. Both of you coming up? Just one?
Just me. Just me. And excuse my voice this evening. I'm dealing with some allergies. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members.
Good evening.
I'm here to present to you the grant application for the Safe Streets and Roads for All grant established by the Department of Transportation. The grant program is established by the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, BIL, and is part of the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, or IIJA. It's $5 billion in appropriated funds over 5 years from 2022 to 2026. This grant program funds regional, local, and tribal initiatives through grants to prevent roadway deaths and serious injuries. It supports the DOT's National Roadway Safety Strategy of zero roadway deaths and fatalities. So the funds for the 2023 SSA4 grant program are to be awarded on a competitive basis to support planning, infrastructure, behavioral, and operational initiatives to prevent death and serious injury on roads and streets involving all roadway users, including pedestrians, bicyclists, public transportation, personal conveyance, and micromobility users, motorists, and commercial vehicle operators. There are two types of grants. There's the Planning and Demonstration Grant, which includes the development of an action plan, conducting supplemental planning, carrying out demonstration activities. The second type of grant is an Implementation Grant, which is for communities who already have an action plan in place, we are submitting the grant application for the development of an action plan for the city of Seaford. There are three selection criteria. The grants are awarded based on these three criteria. Safety impact. This is assessed using two quantitative ratings, the count of roadway fatalities and the fatality rate. The next criteria is equity. It's assessed using one quantitative rating, and that's percent of population within the jurisdiction that resides in underserved communities census tracts. The third criteria is additional safety context, and this is in narrative form. It's 2 pages, can't be no more than 2 pages, and it's assessed on specific criteria being addressed, making sure the scope of work is described, and specifically describing the roadway safety issues that are currently occurring in Seaford. So the fatality rate is calculated using 5-year annual average from the total count of fatalities, and this is based on the US DOT Fatality Analysis Reporting System, or FARS. It's divided by the 2020 population of the applicant's jurisdiction based on 2020 ACS population data from the US Census. The rate is normalized per 100,000 population. Population of a census tract, either a tract that is underserved community or not, must be based on the 2020 ACS population data from the US Census. Application requirements. There are specific forms that need to be filled out. I will get to those momentarily. We're going to go over really quickly the application and the budget information. The last 2 forms are formality forms. They pretty much just need a signature. The assurance for non-construction programs just speaks to that the municipality is authorized to receive federal funding and that you're going to follow any applicable federal laws or statutes. It's key application data that must be included with the package. Total applicant jurisdiction population, total applicant jurisdiction census tracts, the count of persons killed in fatal crashes 2017 to 2021, I will get to that statistic momentarily, the annual fatality rate per 100,000, and total percent of population in underserved communities census tracts. And you do have the application within your packets. So the SF-424 is the actual application for federal assistance. Pretty much standard information on the first page here. You'll see a yellow box there. That is to be left blank per US DOT instructions. The second page, again, standard information. And we've developed the description of the title project to be the SS4A Planning and Demonstration Grant for a Competitive Safety Action Plan for the City of Seaford, Delaware. The third page speaks to the budget information, the estimated funding. In speaking with Mr. Anderson, we agreed on a $75,000 cost to complete the action plan. Per federal statute, 20% of this budget has to come from non-federal funds. In speaking to Mr. Anderson, he told me that local budgetary funds could be used for that amount, which is $15,000. Again, the rest of it is just standard application. Standard budget forms here. I'm just going to go over those real quick. Just everything's filled in. I do want to point something out on the second page of the 424A. We talk about budget categories. And speaking with Mr. Anderson, he said that he would most likely have a contractor complete the action plan. But rather than putting the entire $75,000 in a contractual slot, I put $5,000 in for personnel. This includes staff members from the city who will review the action plan and help to execute the agreement established by DOT. Third page is just want to go over real quick the calculations that we have done for the grant application. application. Sorry. All SS4A applicants must include data on the total population of the jurisdictions covered by the application, as well as the percentage of the population in underserved communities census tracts. Applicants can use the Equitable Transportation Community Explorer tool or the Climate and Economic Justice Screening tool. The SS4A Notice of Funding Opportunity requires the applicants use the most recent 5-year data available in the FARS. The 2017 to 2021 is the most recent data. Mr. Anderson did inform me that y'all had 2 fatalities here last year. Unfortunately, we can't include the 2021 statistics. And you can either use one or the other tool. You can't use both to establish that. And the USDOT encourages the use of the ETC Explorer tool because that presents the most current data. The CEGIST tends to use older census data. It's a screenshot of the FARS system where 1 fatality was reported between 2017 and 2021. Whoops. And that doesn't make or break an application, just so you know that. Additional application requirements are the narrative, as I previously mentioned. This needs to show how the action plan will lead to a significant reduction or elimination of roadway fatalities and serious injuries, employ low-cost, high-impact strategies that can improve safety over a wider geographical area, involve engaging with a variety of public and private stakeholders, adopt innovative technologies to promote safety and equity, and be evidence-based or build evidence around what works. There's a map that is also required that shows the location of the jurisdiction and the roadway network, and a screenshot of the percentage population in underserved communities as established in the ETC Explorer tool. Quick snapshot of the map that we developed. Shows the 4 census tracts that intersect the jurisdiction. And it shows the the population of underserved communities within those census tracts. Bit of application logistics. The application is due Monday, July 10th, no later than 5 p.m. And we must use a valid eval system established by the Department of Transportation in order to submit that. I'm going to be working with Mr. Anderson one-on-one to make sure that that gets submitted. We are going to try our little hearts to have it submitted by the end of this week. That is all I have. Any questions from the mayor?
Any questions from council in regards to the Safe Streets? Councilman King?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So can we talk a little bit about, once an area is designated or kind of pointed out, what are some of the tools? I mean, is it signage, is it roundabouts, or like when you come up with this plan in order to make the roads safer, what does that look like? It's up to the discretion?
Yes.
So if you don't mind, I'll add a couple things. You know, what does this mean to us? Okay, and maybe if I back up slightly, how did we get here? How did we contract with the Rossi Group? So one of our city engineers, Ben Hearn, is here, and we had some back and forth about this. The city of Salisbury benefited this last year from this grant. They filed last year, had an action plan. They received $11 million for improvement projects throughout their city this year. So, you know, staff did some brainstorming. Some examples of potential projects for implementations could be traffic calming on places like Nylon Boulevard, Magnolia Drive, and Woodside Manor, where council has been working on those type things. Filling in gaps in the sidewalk network like we did around the golf course recently. Installing sidewalks, pathways along Pine Street Extended. An example given is from the library to Virginia Avenue. Get those walkers from the schools off of the roadway, make it safer. North Street, Chandler Street, interconnecting streets and sidewalks, helping children get to the schools through those kind of more urban congested areas. Sidewalks around the golf course on Nylon Boulevard and Sussex Avenue where walkers routinely go and are forced to walk out in the road and kind of compete with traffic. Toll Drive extension to the new Montessori school. You know, we've talked about extending that roadway to the rear to provide a secondary access for parents and buses, and then having walking on that low-speed road off of Stein Highway walking and biking would be much more safe than currently them having to go out where there's no shoulders, there are no sidewalks, things like that out on Stein Highway. Middleford Road, those are areas to get walkers to Seroptimus Park, to the hospital complex as an example. It was brought up by Ms. Coons, Front Street, Bridgeville Highway, where we had recent fatalities on bicycles. You know, that intersection, we're studying it now for improvements. But those are some types of examples of projects that we kicked around. So we'll work through this program to identify those projects, and then subsequently we would implement those projects over the next 3 to 4 years. Our superintendent of Parks and Recreation identified in this upcoming budget some sidewalks around the sports complex that need to happen for handicap accessibility, for safety. We had to reduce the amount of sidewalks requested because we just didn't have the budgetary funds. This would be a way, if we're successful, to leverage our dollars with some grant funding in the future to kind of flesh that sidewalk network out, so on and so forth. I would be remiss if I did not add, we're not paying for the work effort of the Rossi Group. This is actually, we're paying for a small portion of it. This is actually funded through our incorporation or our partnership with the Salisbury-Wycomico MPO, because we're part of the Metropolitan Planning Organization. So fortunately, the Rossi Group was able to respond to us very quickly. As stated, and Ms. Coons brushed over it, this is a very aggressive, tight time frame. It requires just a ton of information that our staff would not have been able to do. But bringing them in, they have familiarity with this. They were able to free up staff to get right on it. And if we can get this submitted by the 10th, this will basically be at almost no cost to the city of Seaford. So,
Just to add on that a little bit, so the development of an action plan is the first step, where you would document like your study of traffic, study of crashes, study of all of that. And once you have that action plan in place, the next step would be next year apply for that implementation grant. And as Mr. Anderson said, Salisbury did receive 11.
And your team was a part of that process, getting in the
No.
money? Oh,
We were not.
okay.
I hope that
Yeah,
helped
it
a
did,
little
yeah,
bit.
no,
Okay.
very good, thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Any, Councilman Henderson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Coons, thank you for your presentation. I'm just a little bit confused. Or I want to understand the difference between census tracts and the city, because the census tracts extend beyond the city.
Yes,
It
sir.
says that those census tracts, those 5 tracts encompass 18,900 people. Our city is less than half of that, and I'm not even sure that the one fatality was in the city limits. It might have been out in the census tract out of town. So how does that square up with the data?
These are valid questions, yes. So unfortunately, the Department of Transportation has specific criteria that they require regardless of whether you are the size of Baltimore or whether you're the size of Lewis, Delaware. You use the census tracts that intersect the city limits. And using that data, we come up with the 18.9. So yeah, I mean, there's a whole webinar on this, and I can have you watch it. There's a skew with the data, so the census tracts it captures, just to make sure that those underserved communities are captured.
Well, that's my point. If you follow the data for the city, the disadvantaged communities are going to be a much larger portion of that. So it's definitely skewed, because the more affluent residents live around the city and more affluent communities around the city. So there's the data is diluted because the need is greater within the city, but it's sort of spread out, not showing the need, although there is a need. And I'm hoping that that your company or someone else will be able to advocate for that in the application of the grant and the plan.
Yeah, so I mean, like I said, unfortunately, I cannot do anything about DOT's process. They're very set in their ways.
I get it.
But yes, I appreciate your concern, and the narrative does address.
Thank you.
Because there is, within the narrative, I do have a graphic that shows that transportation safety is an issue for the underserved communities here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other questions from council? If not, I will accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve Safe Streets and Roads for All, SS4A, grant application and submission as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
Councilman McCoy seconds. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Well, we'll get those documents signed and back to you as soon as possible, so you're ready to go before July 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next we're requesting of council to appoint Mr. Mark Grassett to the Police Chiefs Advisory Board. Again, he is another citizen that's gone through the Police Academy, found interest and excitement in that and wants to be a part of that. So we love people that put their hand up and say, I'd like to volunteer.
She
So
went through the Citizens Police Academy.
Citizens Police Academy, I'm sorry, not the State Police Academy. Thank you for correcting that. So we're not putting him in another job. So if there's no questions or comments about that, I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to appoint Mr. Mark Grassett to the Police Chiefs Advisory Board as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Henderson. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. All right, next we have the Code Department electric pickup truck.
Ashley Heineke,
Oh,
municipal clerk.
good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, June 21st, we received one bid for the new electric pickup truck for the Code Department. It was from Hertrick Fleet Services. The base bid was $62,545. We did trade in the existing admin vehicle, or we put it in the bid for a trade-in. They did offer us $3,900 for the vehicle. So the total bid, $58,645. Estimated delivery time is anywhere between 120 to 365 days. Kind of like with the other vehicles, electric vehicles, we still don't really have a good time frame on those either. But obviously, as soon as it's ready to go, they'll let us know and we'll set everything up. But does anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Mrs. Heineke?
Nothing?
If not, we'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to award the bid for the 2023 electric pickup truck to Hertrick Fleet Services in the amount of $58,645 for the purchase of a 2023 Ford F-150 Lightning for the city's Code Department as presented.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Councilman Holland, I second that motion.
Okay, are there any questions on the motion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Councilman McCoy?
Aye.
Councilman Holland?
Aye.
Councilman Henderson?
Aye.
Councilman Bradley?
Aye.
Councilman King?
Aye.
Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, if you don't mind, I'd just like to thank the municipal clerk for all her work on not only the bids that we put out for the electric vehicle fleet, but also her work with Energize Delaware to get the grant funding for these
Right.
vehicles. So she did yeoman's work on this.
Thank you so much. All right, any old business?
No, sir.
Okay, reminders of meetings.
Just have two. The 28th Annual Nanticoke Riverfest is in downtown Seaford, Saturday, July 8th, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. So come on out, have fun. City Hall and utility divisions will be closed on July 4th in observance of the Independence holiday. That's all I have, sir.
All right, we'll go to committee reports, Code, Parks and Rec. Councilman Bradley?
Okay. Mr. Mayor, Mr. City Manager, fellow council members, and guests. I'm going to start by saying that earlier today I mentioned that you guys, you gentlemen, are part of my extended family. And in the future, we will probably have energetic discussions among one another, but we have the same goals, just as a family would be. And I just wanted to mention that. First of all, I talked to Mike Bailey this morning. We discussed code enforcement.
There are 3 rentals in town that have a strike 1, and they are, it's from the adopted code enforcement, and they are being monitored, okay? Not to be redundant, but most of the code violations were from overgrowth and rubbish, you know, and as a sidebar, I wonder when I look in people's yards what the inside of their house may look like. And, you know, mine would be described as organized chaos, okay? So, put a little humor in there on that one. Okay, larger projects on a lighter note are underway. Merrifield 1 and 2 are under construction. Bel Air, the 10 home starts are under construction. And the Western Sussex Business Campus has begun groundbreaking and whatnot. Okay, Parks and Recs. Talked to Catherine this morning. Pickleball had 30 attendance this year, so they were well pleased. The Nylon Boulevard got mulched. The city partnered with Delaware Forestry to host a community day and at the complex, and they actually mulched and watered trees that they had planted there through a previous grant. All right. My big question of the day was Jay's Nest, and Catherine updated me on its progress. It is my understanding from our previous report from the outside inspector that the 1s and 2s have been completed and the 3s and 4s are in progress. Well, I had to back up a little bit to find out what my 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s were. 1 is permanent injury, 2 is serious injury, 3 is minor injury, and 4 is potential injury. Okay, so she is going to keep me abreast on the updates with that, and until further notice, it will still be closed. I spoke to the city manager this morning with some concerns. There's a small tree overgrowth down on Pine extended towards the river. My wife and I have been frequenting it a lot lately since the season has changed, and it happens to be my dog's happy place. So that works out real well for us. But I noticed some entrepreneurs down there that I was thinking were considering some activity, and during the past week or so it's eased up a bit, but with the trees there, it provides a nice curtain so that you can't see what's going on, especially from up the street. So city manager was more than happy to help me address that. And in closing, okay, this week we lost a neighbor, and they sold their home and moved away. And Marie talked to them, and they said it was basically because of their next door neighbor, which I don't know if you know it or not, but in the past 3 or 4 months there have been 2 deaths in the house. I contacted the owner and I said, look, my mom says things happen in 3s, so you might want to get ready. And they said that they felt like it wasn't a good place to raise their kids. And I really am sorry that I didn't get involved sooner, because I may have helped prevent this. Very respectfully submitted.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Police and Fire, Councilman Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Regular communications from Fire Chief Wilson, and so far to date, there's been 477 calls for fire. This month to date, there were 84 calls for an average of 3.2 calls per day. In the EMS statistics, there's 1,955 calls total for the year and 290 calls for this month, for an average call of 11.1 per day for the month so far. There's a total of 252 fire calls in the city for the year and 1,028 within the city for the year for EMS. And out of city calls are 166, and out of city calls for EMS are 618. Assists for other or mutual aid or assists for fire is 53 calls and 75 calls for EMS for the year. If the math is right, that comes out to 471 calls total and 1,721 for EMS. Significant incidents on June 17th. There was a residential fire out of the city on San Filippo Road, which was quickly extinguished, and it was a fire on the back of the house, and it was responded to quickly, and it may just have saved the house because it was getting ready to spread. So we're thankful that we saved life and property there. There was also a vehicle crash with entrapment on Old Furnace Road, which was also out of the city on June 21st. The word is that the victim of that crash was quickly extricated without too much incident. Under apparatus, the ambulance C87 is out for brake issues at local vendor. Ambulance B87 went out of service shortly and was placed back in service after battery was replaced. Engine 87-2 is still out of service for a throttle issue at a local vendor. The last training was held on June 21st at 1,900 hours. Due to the weather, it was done indoors, and they were working on deployment of high-rise hose packs. 20 members were present. The next training will be Wednesday, July 19th at the industrial park. It will be part 2 of engine company operations for hydrant assignments. Under emergency medical services, ambulance committee for A87 replacement has a recommendation for chief for the next steps. Firefighter EMT Bailey Millman is completing his EMT field training and for part-time for EMT. So looking forward to getting him completed, or getting them completed for full service. B87 scheduled for July 10th at Wayside for the repairs to the driver's side due to the accident at Tidal Health. And I've had 2 EMT students from the Delaware State Fire School class riding along with patient contacts. Both are interested in part-time with successful completion of the class. So look forward to them successfully completing their program. There are 2 full-time applications, however, both still need certification. Under news and events, I will say that the chief reports his condolences that honorary member Ed Butler passed away, and the department sends condolences to his family, as do I. Past chiefs Vincent and Marvel took Tanker 87 to celebrate the Merit School graduation on June 17th. Chief Wilson appointed Steve Flood to fire captain and Trevor Holmes to fire lieutenant. They will be filling in some of the vacant spots. So those are significant news and events that I'll share. I'll move on to Police Chief Kraft's report. You'll see the incidents listed year-to-date from 2023 year-to-date, and the 4 columns from 22 to 19. The chief did make a slight change in the burglary numbers for 2023, where he did separate out. There's a total of 73 burglaries, 36 burglaries, and 37 theft from vehicles. So feel like it's important to, when you say burglary, where it's happening. The chief did say that some of these, most thefts from vehicles are crimes of opportunity, where the window's down or the car's unlocked. However, he did say that there have been a recent spat of smashing windows to get into contents, so that's of concern. Under all crimes, there's 156 crimes, and you'll see the distribution between felonies to other. 88% clearance rate, which is on the rise. It's above the last reporting period and above average for the region. Under all crime data below, there were a total of 9 complaints, and that all excludes shoplifting. There was a 44% clearance rate, which went up significantly from the previous period. Under drug complaints, there were 9 drug crimes. All of them were adult arrests. 2 search warrants were served, resulting in, one of them resulted in 41 doses of ecstasy being seized. Under traffic, 189 traffic contacts, 44 citations and 11 warnings, 1 DUI, and it was crash related. 30 crashes, 12 non-reportable and 16 reportable. 2 of those crashes were injury accidents. The primary cause of accidents is driver inattention. 5 hit and runs, 1 bicycle accident, 1 motorcycle accident, 0 pedestrian or school bus accidents in this period. You'll see a chart indicating the times of days and the days of the week where you have the most activity. Under significant events, there are, these are only a snippet of the events that are, the total number of events that occur, but these are the most significant in the chief's opinion. There was, I'm looking for the one that stands out. I usually highlight it, but I did not highlight this one. There's of note on the 16th of June, there was the police department was dispatched to the area of Elm Drive for a dirt bike driving recklessly on the roadway, and it failed to stop at command, resulting in a short pursuit before the officer discontinued, wisely, I might add. The similar complaints with the dirt bike operator have been received in Blades and in Delaware State Police territory, and you might recall, Mr. Mayor, the meeting at Bel Air where there were complaints of dirt bikes coming from the area of Governor's Grant. So they have some idea who may be the operator of the vehicle or vehicles that are running around town on bikes and ATVs. So look for more action on that. the 17th, the police department did traffic control and an escort for the merit graduation. And I would like to add in closing that during this reporting period, the cadet and officers conducted foot patrol on High Street and foot patrols in all shopping areas in Seaford Village, Sussex Plaza, and Lowe's. Conducted bicycle patrol in the area of West Seaford Elementary, Governor's Grant, and numerous streets east of the Stein Highway Bridge and into the East Seaford area. The cadet also conducted a shoplifting investigation, resulting in an arrest warrant. He handled 8 reports, 7 traffic citations, and issued a 24-hour tow tag. That's TOW, not TOE. So, we hope to continue to increase our presence through these initiatives and as well as several community events to be planned this summer. So the chief wanted to add this just to show that the cadet is making an impact just by being visible in the community, and they're actually putting him to work. He has some peers that work at a resort community that are limited to walking the boardwalk, and they're not really doing any kind of police work at all, and they are jealous. So that's the word that's getting out there. So we're really happy to have this fellow with us. So that concludes my report.
Well, I was going to say, I've seen Cadet Brumley many times now in many different situations. He's getting exposure to that world, and he's getting a good training. So proud of the chief for bringing this forward, and proud of the council for supporting it. So, all right, next administration IT, Councilman Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. He attended the meeting regarding Seaford Voluntary Fire Department apparatus funding options, and he has scheduled Stellier Tower to redo terminations at the firehouse, and they attended Walmart's remodeling opening and various other meetings, and all their work is routine. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you very much. Electric, Councilman McCoy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hit a few highlights. Since the last report, they have hung the Riverfest banners. It's a good sign. Worked in Muirfield 1, Phase 3, and replaced the flagpole rope at the community swimming pool. Excuse me. Our director had his director's meeting, council liaison meeting, and staff meeting. He also reviewed the union contract and got the DelDOT permit for the new guy pole in front of my eye doctor. Over the course of the next few weeks, they're going to continue working in Bel Air single-family residence section and continue changing the lights on Sussex Highway to LED. And I will echo the sentiments the mayor expressed, vice mayor expressed, the passing of Mr. Butler. Just a really good man through and through. Seaford legend, he'll definitely be missed. And that is my report.
Amen. Thank you. All right, and finally, Public Works Wastewater Treatment, Councilman King.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My report has been submitted in its entirety. I'm just going to hit some of the highlights, starting with the Public Works Department. Weed spraying continues throughout our community, and second round application is being applied. The director prepared bids for service trucks and pickup trucks. As Uncle Mike alluded to, we have some derelict properties in our community, and the Public Works Department is partnering with the Code Department. We're getting it cleaned up. They worked on some water service installations on Reed Street. Jumping over to the wastewater treatment facility, the primary waste pump number 2 motor is out for repairs. They started LED conversion on some of the fixtures in the administration building. Plant looks good. On my last report, I raised some awareness around the foam and scum in the plant, and good news is that's starting to subside, so that's a good thing there. Some of the upcoming projects over the next few weeks continue to spray weeds, repair cleanouts on the smoke testing list, install a new soda ash pump, continue street patching, painting curbs, and replacing fire hydrants. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just echo what everyone said tonight. Mr. Butler was a great man, did a lot for our community, and he's truly going to be missed, and just prayers and thoughts with the entire family. With that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes my report.
Yeah. Good thing is we know where he is. So,
Yeah.
With that, I'll accept a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Motion from Councilman McCoy, is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.